Well, good evening. How are you all tonight? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. This is later than I usually make my videos, but I've been busy all day. A lot of what I've been busy with is writing the new book, the new modern organized crime mafia novel. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. Before we get started, I wanted to any Kansas City Chiefs fans out there? I bet there's some haters too, aren't there? Yeah, well, I want to show you the latest mug. Now, this isn't available yet, but I'm going to give you all. Usually, I give the sneak previews over on the Patreon channel, but I'll give you the sneak preview of this mug. It'll be available in a day or two, but this is the first one that just got printed up in our print shop. Don't hate us because we're great. To you, do you have any? Are you a Chiefs fan? Do you have any Chiefs fans in your family or your friends? They would love this. And of course, it's as all of our mugs, it's on both sides so that the person you're drinking coffee or whatever with can enjoy it along with you. And over here on the sidebar, of course, we have the Chiefs helmet up there. And then we have each of the Super Bowls that the Chiefs have won. Number 4, number 54, number 57, number 58, and of course the arrowhead down there. Ooh, I know, racist, right? Okay, well, we're not changing. So there you have it. These will be, I'll let you know when they're available, but our web guy needs to get them on the website and get the order, everything so you can order them. These are going to also, just like our last one, going to be available in singles or in sets of 4, because I know that these are the things that real diehard Chiefs fans or just football fans are going to want. And you know what? Somebody asked me when I showed them the prototype of this, and they said, "Could you do that for other teams?" If I asked, I don't know. We will think about it. All right, we will think about it. I know some of you guys out there, you might be a Bengals fan, or whatever. I will think about and see how we might be able to do it through our print shop and our web guy, whether we can do customs. I don't know. I can't promise that, but the Chiefs one is available, will be available in a day or two, and I'll let you know. Just keep checking the website. We ran out of these again, and but don't worry, a new order is coming in Monday, I think they said, and then those will go to our print shop, and we'll be getting those out again. Okay, let's get to the subject at hand here. As many of you know, I have covered a little bit about Mafia Preparedness over on the Patreon channel, and I've kept most of it over there because it's one of those subjects that people tend to think they know a lot about when they don't, right? And whenever I make one of these videos, I'm going to keep a real close eye on the comment section here, because it's one of the, just like guns. When I made the one, I put the one on what was it? The 5 guns you need, or the guns that you need, or something like that. I turned off the comments simply because we get too many people who don't know what they're talking about coming in and wanting to leave comments. Okay, if you know what you're talking about, that's one thing, but too many people don't, and then they mess up and they mislead people and all that. Guns is one, martial arts is another, and the mafia is another. And too many people who saw Goodfellas and some of those think they know all about it, and they're going to come on and make comments. So if I see dumb comments, misleading comments, I'm going to take them off. The reason that I want to do this one tonight is because I think that there's a lot of people out there in the prepper world who are dangerously unprepared for what is very possibly coming. Okay. And the reason for that is because a lot of preppers, again, I use that term, I don't like the term, you know that if you've been with me. I like the term preparedness-minded person, PMP, but too much in the prepper world, prepare with a backward thinking. Okay, they're expecting everything to return to the 1850s, everything collapsing, and now we got to live in the woods and live over candlelight and things like that. That's kind of what my books are about, the Stonemont series. But that's only one potential future for us, and it may not be and I would say it probably won't be, at least in the foreseeable future, the most likely future for which we need to prepare. Now, before I get into this a little bit, for those of you who aren't aware of the history of the mafia, I know about this. Okay, I grew up with the guys. I know the guys all my life. When I was in law enforcement, I was with the Organized Crime Task Force. I've worked with them, against them. I know them, okay? And that's why I'm writing my book. Did I say also, I think that when I'm done with this, I'm going to put the cover for my new book. I'm not going to tell you all what I'm not going to tell on YouTube what the title is yet, but the cover's already been designed, and I'm going to put it up, I think, tonight on the Stonemont level of the Patreon channel. So if you want to get a glimpse, that's where you're going to have to go to see it. As I'm writing this book, it is so much easier for me to write than the Stonemont series, the series many of you have read. Because when I wrote, and I'm still writing, the newest book of the Stonemont series, I'm having to write about things that haven't happened. So I'm having to think, okay, what would happen now? What situations are we going to be dealing with, and what kind of people are going to be dealing with them in what ways? It's very interesting. It's a lot of fun. It's quite a mental exercise. But it is really creating a world that does not at this time exist. When I'm writing my organized crime book, it's just, I can barely keep up with the writing, with the story. The story is just flooding. It's about people I know, things that I've done, things that I know. The conversations are just flowing unbelievably. And so, this book is coming out. I wouldn't be surprised if it'd be ready by Christmas. I'm not promising that. I wouldn't be surprised. So as I write this, I'm struck, and this is what made me make this video, I'm struck very often about how many preparedness lessons are in there. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with the origins of what's called the Mafia, although I've covered this extensively on the Patreon channel, we'll deal mainly, and there is no, you've heard people say there is no such thing as Mafia. That's true. It was never called Mafia except by the movie people, right? And the people who don't know. There are different groups. There is Cosa Nostra, there is 'Ndrangheta, there is the Camorra. You get into France and Corsica, and there's the Union Corse, the Corsican Milieu, all this. But we'll stick with what most people think of as the Mafia. Okay. Where did the word come from? You might ask me. You might be interested. I've hardly ever heard, I doubt very many people know this. You will be the first in your group to know this. Probably my father told me when I was a young man, and then only years and years later I read it. The next person that I ever heard mention it was Joe Bonanno in his book, Man of Honor. He, matter of fact, I was thinking about reading something out of his book as a way to kind of introduce this, but I'll let it go. If you want to know a little bit about it, his book, Man of Honor, Joe Bonanno, his son's book, his son Bill, his real name was Salvatore. He went by Bill, were his books. His were Bound by Honor and The Last Testament of Bill Bonanno. Very good. They give you an inside scoop into what most people call the Mafia. Now, the word Mafia comes from a kind of a conjugation of several things. The story goes back that many years, I don't know, back when France was occupying Sicily. Sicily has been occupied by every country in the world, just about. Well, not every country, but they suffered through and had to learn to live under and deal under successive oppressive occupiers. Okay, as a result, they developed a lifestyle that enabled them to live well under this oppression, and actually turn it around and control a lot of it. That's what we're going to get to in a few minutes. But the story goes that there was this a beautiful barmaid, and a French soldier took a liking to her, and she rebuffed him because she was, well, first off, he was French, and she was Sicilian, and they were occupying Sicily, and she didn't like him. But she was betrothed to another. She was engaged, and so he didn't like being rebuffed, and he waited for her when she got off work and grabbed her and raped her. And when she finally got home, disheveled, and told her mother what had happened, her mother opened the door and screamed out into the street, "Mafia, mafia," meaning my daughter, my daughter. Now, there's a second part to that story, and the second part is that when her fiance heard about this, he went and he killed the French soldier who had raped his fiance. And from that grew a great upheaval amongst the Sicilian against the French, and their motto was Morta France, Morta alla France, Francia. It's been a while since I said this. Italia, Anello, which means death to France, Italy forever. Okay, so that's where this idea of mafia comes from. It's just it's a made-up word. Okay, that there's never been anything called the mafia actually existed. It's just a term that people use. Okay, now, so where does it come in that? Why would I say that mafia preparedness is important for you to understand and to implement if you're going to be successful in preparing for what comes? Simply this. The mafia did not, and I'm using that term, okay, the people of Sicily, let's put it that way, they knew that open rebellion against the kind of oppressive government that there was, would just ensure they'd all be slaughtered, they'd all be killed. Standing up in front of something you have absolutely no chance of winning the fight against is foolish if you have a family to support. And their main concern was being able to protect and support their families. And so they developed ways of working under the radar, okay, creating alternative societies, social orders, rules, laws, economies that they were able to work and do well outside the formal structure of government under which they lived. They also developed the ability to affect and influence that oppressive government in many different ways. Some ways by threats, some ways by extortion, some ways by blackmail. They catch the magistrate dallying with whoever. I'm not going to put too fine a point on it, and they've got that magistrate in their pocket, right? Or the governor of some province, is having some money problems, and he's about to have his land foreclosed on, and they buy the land and let him continue to live on there, and now they control him. Now, it's difficult really to explain how it worked in Sicily, but it's easier to explain how it happened here. If you watch the movie The Godfather, it's probably the best movie. As a matter of fact, there are many who claim that it was based on Joe Bonanno, and I've seen The Godfather and everything that I know, and I know a great deal about Bonanno. I would say that that's a fair bet. Let me take a sip here. The story of Joe Bonanno, the story of The Godfather. Impoverished Sicilian immigrant comes to, and they came in masses. They came in by the thousands. They arrived in a country they couldn't speak the language. Nobody liked them. Everybody hated them. They were looked at as the filth, the dirt of Europe. Nobody wanted to deal with them. So they had to develop a way to create their own insular society. Okay, they couldn't depend on the greater society. They couldn't, which wanted nothing to do with them. So they dealt with each other. So they became very insular, very secretive, and supported each other. And hopefully, you're already seeing where we're going with this. So they supported each other. And there were many that got involved in criminal activities. Sure, there were. There were others who, as a result of simply doing what they thought was okay to do, like making wine in their basement, they got busted by the government, and they couldn't understand, well, how come the government can sell, can tax all the booze that's being made by everybody, and they're going to arrest me and throw me in jail for making wine in my basement. That's always been our culture. It's been our culture for hundreds of years. So they didn't see where that was fair, to be honest. And I think you see where I'm going with that. They didn't see how they said, well, and they ran the numbers, if you're familiar with the numbers, called the Italian lottery, to where there would be a number that was picked every day, and there's many different ways to do that. And people could buy a chance at winning a prize for a penny or a nickel or whatever like that. And, it was something that it kind of gave hope to these people living in the ghettos of Little Italy, that they might strike it big. They might win something. Nobody got hurt. Nobody was forced to do it. But the police, the government, was always raiding them or making them pay protection in order not to raid them. See, and they said, well, how come rich guys can play the stock market, which is gambling, but we can't have our little thing that we've done for forever in our own neighborhood? And we always play fair. We always pay off people who won, and nobody ever gets hurt. How come the police are busting our chops, and making us pay protection money? Well, they understood and they realized how corrupt the government was. There are more bells starting to ring for you here. And so this allowed them, and there was a great Bonanno made this statement one time. He says, I'm not going to let other men tell me how I should live my life, and so he felt, as other people did who began, helping people and creating these families and bringing, through mutual help, as they created these families and clans and such. They said, we are not going to live under the boot of an oppressive government. We are going to call our own shots, live our own lives, protect ourselves from the oppressive government, and take care of our own people, helping the people who need help, punishing those who need to be punished. And we're not going to leave it up to the system to do it. Simple as that. Now, many of them crossed the line. Many of them went, and I'll tell you when it really, not that you really care about this, but when things really started to change is when Lucky Luciano came in, created the commission. Everything stopped being about families. And I'm not saying that everybody before that was wonderful people. They weren't. But some were. And some did it for the right reason. And then all of a sudden everything started being about money. Okay. And that's when the downfall started. And that's when it stopped being anything that anybody should want to emulate. But what I'm talking about here are the reasons for the development of these organized crime groups and how they were able to establish that parallel economy, that parallel society that allowed them to provide for their families and do well separate from the greater system. I'm sure you're with me now, right? You see where we're going with this. The key to their success, and this is a lesson that many so-called preppers need to learn, is they didn't prepare to live in the past. Okay? I mean, Sicily, where they came from, people rode around on burros, where they walked everywhere. It was a very poor country. They didn't want to go back to that. Could they survive that? Yeah, they could survive that. They had survived it for centuries. But they didn't want that. They saw a better life ahead, and they wanted that. They wanted to live that way. They wanted to provide that to their families. They wanted their children to have it, their grandchildren to have it, and eventually almost all of those families, their big dream was for their children, grandchildren, and future generations to be able to join the greater society and become doctors, lawyers, things like that. And for the most part, most of them have. But the reason that they were able to be successful is because they planned and prepared to be able to do well in what was coming in the future. Okay. And that's the lesson that I think a lot of preppers miss. And I try to stress this over and over. Too many preppers, again, prepare to live when everything falls apart. Too few have an eye to the future and say, okay, what if everything that we see continues? Okay, what if, for instance, I had somebody ask me a question and I said I was going to include my answer in this video, so I will. He says, what happens, Steve, when the government can takes all the money out of your bank account? They make it illegal to own or trade in gold and silver, and they put everything to a CBDC, a central bank digital currency. What then? Aha. I'm not necessarily going to give the specific answers here, but I'm going to give you a direction, okay? This could be what's coming. Now, if this could be what's coming, what preparedness-minded person in their right mind would not start preparing for that? Okay? So many in the preparedness world fight against it and say, and they just give up. I'll be honest with you. They give up. Well, your money's not going to be worth anything, and this and that, and this and that, and I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to live in a world like, oh, well, I don't understand a person who doesn't want to live. I really don't. Because when you're saying that you don't want to live in a world like that, what you're saying is you don't want your kids to live either, and you don't want your grandkids to live. What kind of person feels that way? I'm glad I know I rag on these people a lot. They deserve it. I'm glad I'm about dead. I'm glad I'm in my 70s. Well, I'm in my 70s, and I hope to live another 50 years, but, you do you, right? I'm glad I won't be around here much longer. What a selfish attitude is that? You're not a preparedness-minded person. You're just a whiner and a complainer, okay, who wants to kind of get their disaster Jones going. But the truly preparedness-minded person is the one who says, okay, I may not like what's coming down the road, but if I'm going to live a life worth living, and I'm going to be able to provide for my family a life worth living, I had better understand what's coming and develop a plan to deal with it. Right? Okay. What does that mean? Now, here's where I say I'm not going to give you specifics because that would be giving away. And there's certain things that I just don't say, right? I mean, there's things you don't say to people, right? Especially when you're talking on YouTube. I will say this. This is the key that will open the door that you have to go through and then make your plan. You have to be able to deal with that system. Okay? You have to be able to. Now, some of it will be dealing within the system. Okay? Some of it, maybe a lot of it, is going to be dealing outside the accepted parameters of that system. Am I being oblique enough? But you have to figure out what that is. And you have to prepare for it. Now, for those people, a lot of you are already getting it. You are the ones that I make my videos for. There are a lot of people, I'm sure I'll see the comments, I just listened to however many minutes this is going to be. I don't know. I always get these complaints. I listened to such and such. It was a complete waste of time because you didn't tell me exactly what I need to do. Here's exactly what you need to do. Prepare to be able to live and function well in whatever's coming. How about that? But how? You figure it out. You have to figure it out. But in order to do that, you have to understand it. You have to understand what's coming. Now, I just made one a few days ago about asking everybody to explain crypto to me, if you can. I didn't really understand anything about crypto. Mike Morton did a great job explaining it to me. A couple of others did too, and I forget who did. So I'm sorry and this is over on the Patreon channel. If you're not with us on Patreon, you know what to do. Join us on Patreon. That costs you $1. Are you willing to spend $1 to learn more about what to do? Right down below is a link down in the information section that says link to the Patreon channel. Okay. Anybody who's not willing to do that doesn't want to learn. But if you'd like to join us, you're more than welcome. And that's where I get so much of the information I learn from the people on the Patreon channel. And I put it out to them. I said, anybody know anything about crypto, please make it understandable to a dummy like me. And several did. And now I understand it. I just listened to Elon Musk talk quite a bit about crypto this morning. And I'm starting to understand it more. If crypto is the future, it doesn't do you any good to complain about it and to say that you want nothing to do with it. It's important that you understand it and know what to do with it, okay? How about the guy back in 1700s, right? That said, I don't want nothing to do with them fire sticks. Those things that go boom. I want nothing to do. I got my bow and arrow, and that's all I need. You see, that is the equivalent of the modern person that says, I don't want to learn any of this new stuff. I don't like electric vehicles, and I don't like this, and I don't like that. Well, you're setting yourself up to fail. It's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're going to say, those things they're not the way of the future. I don't want that future. Well, you're fulfilling your own prophecy because you're not going to be able to sustain yourself in that future. And you will be a distant memory if you have future generations coming out of you. So my advice is this. Take a lesson from those organized crime groups. Mafia Preparedness, if you want to put it that way, who, as a result of their being ostracized by a greater society and oppressed by the government, were able to develop alternative, parallel societies, economies as a way of providing for their families and ensuring the safety for their families. And that's what you have to do if you're going to be a successful, preparedness-minded person in the future. Preparedness is about being prepared for whatever comes, not just those few things that are kind of titillating to think about, right? Oh, it's exciting to think about this and an EMP and a this or that. But you have to be prepared for anything. Okay. I'm going to jump off here. Remember, these will be available. I'll let you know. In the next couple of days when you can order these. These really came out cool. I know I'll be sending a lot of these for Christmas presents. And yeah, we're getting a new load in. As soon as the new load of mugs gets in, they'll go to our print shop, and more of these will be going out, and all of our other mugs. But these are the biggest seller ever. So keep that in mind. Think about it. What can you do? The future is coming. You can't stop the future. You don't know what it's going to be. But whatever you see you see it on the horizon, start thinking about it. Start paying attention to it. Start learning about it. I don't know everything about technology that I would like to, but I know that in order to be able to continue to function well, I'm going to have to learn. It's not as much fun as walking through the woods and starting a fire. But it's a matter of what do we need to do to really be prepared to survive and live well. Okay? You all have a good night. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Join us on the Patreon channel. Visit us our website, stonemont.us. I didn't even mention my books, but you all, unless you're new here, I wrote the Stonemont series. You can buy the books from me on the Stonemont website, stonemont.us. And think about what you can do to be prepared in whatever world is coming. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.